Hey guys, welcome to FloridaMan40k, the competitive Warhammer 40k podcast. This is episode whatever it is, I didn't look up. And today I have with me John, whatever his last name is, the dude, and James T. Prescott.
Ooh, you remembered my name. I feel honored.
Yeah, but there's that awkward pause because I had to remember it.
Yeah, well, it came out in the end. We all do, right?
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah,
James Tiberius Prescott.
That is me.
I just love that I get. Yeah. No, I'm fucking saying his middle name. You know how everyone's always like, "Oh, guess my middle name, Jimmy." You are the only person that I've successfully guessed the middle name of on the first try, ever.
Is it? And you do believe it's Tiberius?
Yeah.
I have pride.
It's not Tristan. It's not Tristan.
Okay.
It's Tiberius.
My spiritual last name is Tiberius, so I agree with you.
Yep, absolutely, 100%. All right, so we're here to talk to you about the pace of the game. And also we're going to talk about what we're doing, because you're bored and we're also bored. And I want to play more 40k.
And we also have to address that, unfortunately, the ATC was canceled this year, which, as just being a competitive team that loves 40k, that's our favorite event. We don't get that this year, and that just sucks. And we also want to address, obviously we didn't record last week or release an episode, with the just limited amount of 40k content. There's just less to talk about, so we're going to probably move to bi-weekly for a little while.
Yeah, we'll get that back eventually. One day we'll be able to buy Gazcool and Ragnar. I really want to buy Ragnar.
Which one's Ragnar?
Ragnar's the space wolf who's jumping off an eagle statue holding a chainsword. And it's just like, oh, he's just a space marine holding a chainsword. What's so cool about him? I played Ragnar in one game and he killed 5 Iron Hand Centurions on his own. It's like, oh, that's what Ragnar does. Ragnar slaps.
Yeah. And no matter where he is, cinematically he's jumping off a statue. There wasn't even a statue before that scene started, but he is doing it.
He grabs it and just drags it while he's walking somewhere, and then when it's time to go into combat, he just drops it real fast, climbs up on it. He's like, all right, now we're good.
Yeah, it's 75% of his strategy. He couldn't have killed those 5 Centurions without it.
Exactly.
No, he needs the height advantage.
He needs the high ground.
He needs the high ground.
He went to Obi-Wan's school of fighting.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah.
All right.
Well, probably that's what happened is Gazgul whooped his butt. That's why he had to go Primaris, because Gazgul was taller than him. And so he learned Anakin when Anakin got diced up. And that's why, Darth Vader just chucks the stuff at Luke and is like, get down here. That's what Ragnar learned.
I believe it's the fact that Ragnar cut Gazgul's head off. However, he sewed it back onto a taller body. So now Ragnar's like, well, I'm going to do it again, and he brought a stool with him.
Or a whole statue.
He's not going to be deterred. He brought a statue, so he just chucked it on the ground in front of Gazgul. He's just getting to run and start, jumps off it. He's going for the head again.
Could you imagine, in the 40k universe, you get diced up, and you're like, okay, I won. I literally cut his head off. And then Gazgul just sends you a text message, and he's like, I'm back.
Hey,
I didn't hear no bell.
Hey, fuck you. Yeah. Oh, man.
All right, we're going to talk about competitive stuff very soon. However, if you guys want to hear an entirely fluff episode of Warhammer, where we do not talk about any rules whatsoever, let us know in the comments. Because if people want to hear us completely just, shooting it about the fluff of Warhammer, I'm in for it.
I'll be real good at that too.
We're gonna have to do it at some point during all this COVID stuff. There's not enough. There's not enough to keep at the peak.
Ugh.
You know what? I've read exactly 3 Warhammer stories. Okay, so I'm an expert on the fluff.
I can only really talk about Tyranids and how they lose even in their own codex.
Ugh.
Yeah.
Oh boy.
That's
all right.
awful.
Well, let's work on the pace of this podcast. The pace.
I see what you did there. I can't say I like it.
I liked
but
it.
I see it.
I appreciated it, John. Thanks for that.
I'm just going to jump on this segue. We're going to roll with it. All right. Dan, do you want to kick us off?
Sure. Yeah. So, basically the reason I was thinking about this topic a little bit is, with the lack of gaming in person, I had to scratch my competitive itch. So I've been playing some League of Legends again. And League of Legends, it's all about tempo and control, making sure that you're hitting certain objectives, hitting certain landmarks at a certain time. And I was thinking about in 40K, you have 6 turns to a game, so you have essentially 6 points where you can basically check your progress, look at the score sheet. I actually really like how Pro Tabletop did it with a halftime where you have 5 minutes to go get water, go to the bathroom, whatever. Just basically collect your thoughts every turn and make sure you are where you want to be on the scoreboard. A specific example of this is Grey Knights. They really rely on turn 1 not giving up a kill. So at the end of turn 1, did you hold? Did you kill? Did you kill more? And did your opponent get a kill? And if the score is what you expect it to be, then you're on pace for whatever your winning strategy is. And if it's not, you know how you have to adjust. So you might need to maybe make a more aggressive play you wouldn't normally make to catch up on points, or you have a little bit more of a lead than you thought you did. So maybe I don't need to take this risk. I can hide that asset, give a little bit of ground to set up for a stronger late game. So basically, on a macro scale, the thought I had is have a clear cut strategy for your ability to win this game. How am I going to score the 30 plus points I need to win this game? And then that breaks down to, well, I need 5-6 points every single turn, including secondaries. How am I going to get there? So, with that, if either of you have anything you want to add, go for it.
I'm with you 100%. I think that the old 30-point game that we used to talk about, I think that concept's actually a little bit outdated because of the changes to the ITC champs missions, because scores are just generally going higher. I've started seeing people get 30 points and lose, and like it now seems like 30 is like the points you get in a very strong, close losing effort. It's no longer where like if you get 30 points you just win. That it's actually a lot more common now, but when you get those, a lot of armies like to score their points at different times. Like, the Sisters list that I ran, it traditionally didn't get a kill turn one. I think I played 11 games with it. And I think the only time I got a kill turn 1 so far is when I went second against Eldar and deployed on the line and just let them line up and charge me. Because I just didn't care. And sure enough, I got charged by like 10 Harlequins. They killed like roughly 20 models, and then I beat them to death. And I got a kill turn 1. It was magical. Other than that, I've definitely focused on losing those early turns and kind of carrying through to the late game where I start catching up the score. And I think it's very important to recognize how your opponent is going to try to approach the game. And you can almost always tell by list design. Some lists are just designed to do their thing for 6 turns. I think Imperial Guard is one of those, where they're just trying to kill what they can for 6 turns, run guardsmen onto objective as much as they can, and hope that they hold you off from touching their tanks long enough for you to run out of models or the game to end. But other armies like Tyranids really try to dominate early. Tau really try to dominate late, kind of like the mid game actually. And some of the late stuff, Chaos loves to win that late game because they reach a point where you've lost all your guns, you've killed most of their characters. Then there's that one Nurgling squad out of line of sight and 2 Demon Princes that you just can't shoot for the turns 5 and 6. And then they just win because you're not getting any dang points while they just are like smiting and going and charging things and just getting 1 kill, which gives them kill more. That's how I kind of see those armies.
I just can't avoid talking about Chaos because I love them so much. But one of the reasons they specifically do that so well, and kind of Grey Knight's late game strategy too, is using redeploy and double move, which double move honestly is an incredibly powerful mechanic in the game right now, which we can get into a little bit. But like Chaos, like you're saying, a Demon Prince can just decide to move 24 inches on turn 5 or turn 6 to go take an objective, make a charge, whatever they need to do to close the game. If it's an incredibly close game, you can have a play like that where a Demon Prince can just go and take the game for you. And if we want to go down that path, a big part of that is the double move. So I'll let you guys decide if we want to go that route or continue on with tempo right now.
Yeah, well, before you do that, and this may be a topic that you guys were already going to try to move into, but mentioning the 30-point game and even the pace of the game, like the possibility of like a later game army, or even just getting a lot of points in the first stages of the game, are a lot easier now that they've made secondaries so easily achievable, especially since there are a lot of situations where a secondary objective can get you more than just 1 point a turn. So previously, you had to maintain your control of a secondary objective in order to get points throughout the game. But now, like even things like recon or whatever, just having more units around the board allows you to get 2 points per turn. You could literally complete a secondary objective in a third of a game time rather than in the majority 2/3 of a game time. So like that whole 30-point game, whenever your secondary is those 12 points, are so easy to achieve, suddenly it becomes a lot more important to just hold those objectives and things. You just find that points accumulation comes a lot faster.
Yeah, that's a big reason why the game has changed, really. If you tell me I can max my secondaries on turns 2 and 3 and focus on board control 4, 5, and 6, then I can re-emphasize getting the bonus. And as a byproduct of getting the bonus, I am maxing my recon. I'm maxing my behind enemy lines. I'm able to extend and show a lot more assets because your reaction time is cut in half. Instead of having turns 2, 3, 4, and 5 to deny me these points, you got 2 turns, and I can just overload. And in the process, I score the bonus on turn 3. I'm in position, even if you kill most of my stuff. Well, I already maxed recon behind enemy lines. And now you've got to move me off of this objective, which means you're not dealing with my backfield presence and my hidden assets. You're dealing with my forward assets.
Yeah.
And so that absolutely, I think, increased the validity really of MSU Sisters and Horde Tyranids, as well as really Eldar always has tricks for everything. But Guard is the other one, because of move, Guard with combining squads and leadership shenanigans and stringing out, which Nick and Lennon went into great detail on a few weeks back on Art of War.
Yeah. Also a new psychic. Is it a new psychic power? There's a psychic power that ups your save by 1, correct? From Guard?
Yeah, it's not new. It's been modified a bunch because people are abusing it with invols. But yeah, you can increase your saves. There's also Scions, I think, have the order to go to ground to get the +1 save. Or there's Guard shenanigans to get more durable than you should be. Yes.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So, Dan, do you want to kind of work with me and give like one example of kind of like an early game, like an early game pace army, mid game, late game?
Yeah.
Okay.
So I'll start just with the Tyranids buggies list, if that's okay with you.
Yeah, he's going to talk about my army in front of me. Yeah.
Cool. So as Lennon knows better than I do, really, the Tyranids list with the Gene Stealer Cult, Achilles Ridge Runners, they have a pre-game scout move and a 14-inch base move. If you're going first, so you can just apply pressure on the board. You have a high volume of high damage shots to remove enemy assets, and you can just establish 2/3 of the board if you're going first and say, this is mine, you have to table me before you take it back. And I'm so fast, I can give up my shooting to just go I can shoot and then go charge your stuff and deny some of your shooting. And Ridge Runners are fairly cheap and fairly durable for the points cost. And then you can do either Acolytes or Gene Stealers. Acolytes to get the perfect ambush and just continue to double down and triple down on board controlling your enemy's deployment zone early while limiting their movement. Or if you take Gene Stealers, you get the double move, the 40-some inch threat range, where you can just get into charges, get try points, and both of those have objectives secured to steal the bonus and steal objectives from your opponent. So you just put threat overload onto as many objectives as possible, hold more bonus for 3 turns, kill assets, and then just don't get tabled and get a kill and a hold turns 4, 5, and 6. And that's super like generalized, and there's a lot more nuance to consistently winning with it, but that's the general idea.
That is one of the main premises, and I'm sorry, Jimmy, go ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry. I was just going to say, while we have the time as well, I don't believe that in this podcast we've given Acolytes as much of a description as we may want to, being such a Tyranid and Genestealer cult-centric podcast, in my opinion. I know that we've talked about the Swarm Lord with the Genestealer rush, where they can run across the table very quickly as Kraken. But you do have the Pauper Prince option with the Acolytes as well, where they can fight on deaths, so they can really get an option with their flamethrowers, and then they attack in their charge, and then they attack again when they're dead. There's some pretty good play there. Did we want to talk about that at all? Is that worth playing right now, or is that just like a pipe dream?
I mean, it's what I'm playing right now. I happen to think it's awesome.
Oh, okay.
I think Genestealer cult work. I think they're more of a mid-late game army. But honestly, the Ridge Runner with Acolyte list is kind of like a very strange hybrid of it. But I still find that I try to win the game on the later turns rather than delivering just an initial knockout punch.
Yeah.
I am gonna cycle back to the Tyranids for now, because the Kraken Genestealer version I think is much more of a early game domination. The strength of the Tyranid list in the early pace games, where you're trying to get that insurmountable lead on turn 1 and 2, like those are the turns you're really going hard. One of the strengths is pinning your opponent in so that they don't get to immediately deal damage to you, like with their whole army. Because what often happens is, like, you send out a big block of gaunts, you move them 3 times somehow and spend a couple command points, and you go super hard. You pin your opponent in, they kill that one unit that was screening them, and then all their guns aren't in range and they weren't able to move out and hop on enough objectives to actually like counter your hold more. So if you go first with Tyranids, your opponent doesn't deploy on the line because they don't want to just get hit by everything immediately. So you rush a Genestealer squad out, go kill something, go hold the bonus, whatever it may be, and then you pin them in with the horde, maybe get a wrap on something so they don't get to shoot you to death, they have to charge you to death. Well, now your opponent kills the Genestealer unit. You might have killed 2 things with your Genestealers, they can only kill the one horde unit in front of them. And then you just got, going first, you get your kill hold bonus on your turn. And then you were holding, 5 objectives. You pushed them in deep. They weren't able to come out onto all of them. So now you're holding 3, they're holding 2. So you hold more. If you were able to get multiple kills on small things, like you shoot something with Hive Guard and an Execrate, and then you charge something with the Genestealer and kills it, and then they just kill the Stealer squad back, it's like a 5-2 primary turn. And then turn 2, you do the exact same thing with the second Genestealer unit. They haven't gotten out of their own deployment zone yet. You kill, hold, bonus, possibly kill more, almost certainly hold more, even going first. That's a very deep hole to get out of, because Tyranids are very good at getting the secondaries as well. As we mentioned, you can get up to 2, recon points a turn. So you can easily, all right, turn 1, I got a recon. All right, turn 2, I got 2 recons. It's very easy to just turn 3, go get a recon with like a Ripper Swarm, stuff that's still in reserves, without having to commit main forces. And then end of turn 3, you're up like 8 or 9 points, and your opponent has to now, to get back from that, they have to kill more, hold more for the next 3 turns to just tie the primary, and they also have to max their secondaries to really wrestle that back. That's a really deep hole to be in. Tyranids do that better than Genestealer cult.
A big reason why that works too is Hive Guard specifically, because to come out and play mid-board to reclaim hold more, you're exposing something for Hive Guard to just kill. And they're very good at just removing 1 target per turn, guaranteeing you that kill 1 for the mid to late game. So even if you have to back up and concede some of that board control, if you've got a big enough lead early, you're just going to coast to victory essentially, and you just have to make sure you're scoring on pace so they can't come back and outscore you on the end of it at the end of the game. And so that's where monitoring every single turn is so important. Understand, well, I outscored them 5-2 for my first 2 turns, but if they outscore me 4-2 for 4 turns, they're going to win that primary. So I've got to make sure I keep it a little bit closer. So that's where you need to watch the score and understand what decision to make every single turn to ensure you maintain your lead.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And talking about that, and this is like a hot take as you guys talk about the different pacing styles throughout the game, but with the current atmosphere of holding objectives and the way that secondaries work now, it seems like since secondaries are so easy to achieve, you should kind of have the expectation that the other person is going to be able to achieve them by the end of the game. It's great if you can stop them from doing that, but the game is really now in the primary points, and specifically the bonuses, which are a majority of them based on controlling the center of the board. A lot of them now are basically control all the objectives that aren't in your or the enemy's deployment zone. So it's like a center board control type game now. Mm-hmm. In that situation, with the way that defender and attacker works, it seems like the most optimal play would be to play as the defender. You then have an army that is able to move to the center of the board and is durable enough to stay there. And it's a situation where if they end up taking an objective, because you're the second person, you peel them off of it to get hold more. You do what you can to get kill and kill more. But the majority of the game is you start as defender. By the second turn, you hold the center of the board, max out your bonuses, max out your secondaries, and then just try to stay there as long as possible. It's basically like a game of remove me. And that seems like it would be best done in the second turn of the game to be most efficient. Would you guys disagree with that? Is there a flaw in that strategy?
Yeah. Basically, the big glaring weakness is if you do not have fly. Because if I go first and I throw my Gene Stealers and you can't move past them, you're never getting to the middle of the board. So the armies that are going to do your strategy the best would be something like Shining Spears, the Warlock Conclave. They don't like being shot. They want to use their double move to avoid getting shot, but they can get into the mid game after removing some assets, hop over whatever you're trying to move block with, and go contest and make those plays. A good army or a good model to think about as we discuss all this is Imperial Knights. If you have had trouble beating Imperial Knights and you figured out the best way to beat them is to limit their movement, and you can do that, just put a single Calexis Assassin 3.1 inches away. They don't kill it very efficiently. They got to charge it. It's a speed bump that they can't get past, so that 12-inch movement becomes a 3-inch. And that is basically what we're trying to express doing to your opponent's entire army. Because Marines are very popular, they don't have a lot of fly outside of their vehicles. Tyranids, they're getting more popular. They don't have a whole bunch of fly. Chaos, their fly is mostly on their characters. They don't want to expose those characters, so their screens are going to get slowed down. It's really easy to picture in the context of an Imperial Knight because it's a big model. It has trouble moving around buildings and stuff, so they're easy to move block. You're used to doing that already. Just apply that theory to the macro scale of any army in the game, and how do you achieve that goal in other armies? And then if your idea is to go second as the defender, be durable, get hold more bonus, take it from your opponent, you have to understand that the situation I will be in is the attacker will move as fast as they can to block me in. How do I answer that? And if you have an answer for that, you'll be a very good defender army. And if you don't, you won't.
Yeah. Well, I think in that situation, not every army has the potential to like literally move onto your deployment zone line at the very beginning of the game. So like in that situation, sure, go attacker because you know what the strategy is going to be. But in most cases, It seems like the most opportune strategy would be to go second so that you can hold more by the end of the turn.
Yeah, I just think we haven't seen it yet because of the lack of events. I think that the general meta shift is going to be into these high mobility armies with the double move. That's kind of a tangent I'm going to go into at some point on this podcast, is the ability to double move to gain board control and apply early pressure and movement restrictions to your opponent is probably one of the strongest abilities in the game right now. And it's available to a ton of armies, that and redeploy. So double move, you have, off the top of my head, Imperial Guard, Chaos, Eldar, of course. Eldar has like 3 different double moves. Tyranids. So you have 4 very good armies that have double moves. You also have Grey Knights and Chaos and Orcs that have redeploy that you can do on turn 1. You also have Imperial Guard, Alpha Legion, and other ways to infiltrate. Well, Imperial Guard start turn 2, but like Alpha Legion, Blood Angels, and some other armies that can just, before the game, I'm 9 inches away from you. Tau can literally put ghost kills on your deployment zone before you have the option to even deploy. So, while like an army as we think of it, they might not have those tools. You might not see that in every tournament list you play against. A ton of armies have that potential to win turn 0 or top of turn 1. And we're going to see a lot of armies adapting to that play style because that's what plays these missions the best.
True, yeah, because Ghost Kills, that's been an argument people have made against that unit. But being able to just deploy as the attacker right up against, like, basically as close as they can be, that does really limit the opponent's options if they're playing as the defender. In what they can target or what they can move around, that's true. That you'll see those types of units come back.
So that, because the objective of the game is to score more points than your opponent. That's it. It doesn't matter about kills. It doesn't matter anything except score more points than your opponent. And the best way to do that, in my opinion, in most games, is by establishing an incredibly early board control and restricting the movement of your opponent.
I obviously think that is very powerful. You are prone to, if you can't get off those strong early turns, then you end up really struggling. So if you ever recognize that you're playing against an army that's going for that, you know, like turn 1 and 2, I need to get 5 points. Like I need to redeploy into the bonus. Take the bonus away from them and just make that margin of defeat smaller for the first 2 turns. So like, let's say, like if I'm playing Tyranids into Tau, I know that to win that game, I need to outscore them heavy early on and hope that I kind of win by a couple points as they like continue to shoot me across the game. If the Tau player wins the roll off and decides they want to be the attacker, and then let's say like it's mission 4, they need, or let's say it's mission 1, you need to hold 4 of the 6 objectives to bonus and win. Turn 1, the Tau player just runs their entire crisis bomb with all of the drones around it just directly onto the center objective. And then they leave like 2 different 2-man drones on the back stuff far away, like it's Hammer and Anvil or something. Now the Tyranid player, they can go second, they can get the kill, they might be able to go contest an objective, to like shoot something off of an objective to get hold more, but also they might not be able to because they now have to go all the way around that crisis bomb to reach the back objectives, and the crisis bomb can literally wall that center one off so that the Tyranid player now can't bonus. And now you may be looking at the Tyranid player, they get their kill more because, you know, drones. Maybe they're able to leverage a hold more, maybe they struggle to get the bonus. And maybe they get it on turn 1, and then by turn 2, the crisis bomb has like fully captured that front objective, and you're just not getting to it at that point. Like there's just physically no place for you to put any models on it. Suddenly, end of turn 2, that Tyranid army is up like 3 or 4 points instead of the 5 or 6 points that they were hoping for. Now, the attacker, the Tau player, they can start getting in range, just killing, instead of not doing much on turn 1 because the Tyranid player was hiding. Like they start forcing the issue, And they start getting their points, and the Tyranid player was not able to get enough of a lead. They end up losing.
Mm-hmm.
That will happen.
Yeah, and Tau specifically is a great army to bring up because they play the mid to late game wonderfully. They dominate 2/3 of the game, and they get around the early game weakness because their whole army has fly. And they get better the closer you get. So Tau, I think, is the strongest army in the non-existent meta we have right now, because they play the game just more completely than any other army. Eldar has the tricks to do it. Tau is just more consistent because of drones.
Yep, drones. Yeah, but I kind of like an army that's like pacing for the mid game. Like Tau often don't get kills turn 1. Like you look at what I would say a standard Tau list is right now: a bunch of crisis suits, multiple commanders. This is the Richard Siegler build. It's the standard one because he plays it, and that means it's the best. You've got all your commanders. It's a lot of short range shooting. You basically like. I think the only guns that are more than 24 inches in that list are 3 missile commanders. And they're awesome. They're good shooting. However, there are some situations where they don't get a kill turn 1. Like your opponent sees you and they're like, oh, I'm just going to stay away from that. like they're just not going to put anything other than like a toughness 8 tank in cover, like in line of sight of those missile commanders. And then they're fine. Like they're not losing any units turn 1. And the Tau player, traditionally Tau give up secondaries, like Butcher's Bill, relatively easily. And they give up kill more, especially early on, relatively easily, because let's say those missile commanders kill something, the missile commanders are not blowing apart 4 units on turn 1. And plenty of, armies can kill 8 drones on turn 1, which is 4 kills. So the Tau player kind of goes into this knowing that they're not going to be, in a roughly equal game. Obviously, if you just play a terrible list, you'll blow them out of the water, no one cares. But in a tight game, they're not going to be getting 5-point turn 1s. And Tau, while they're not slow, they're not, I just crossed the entire board fast. So it's very rare that Tau will bonus on turn 1. Most missions, I would say they don't.
Mm-hmm.
And they can get to that point where turn 3, they're now on 4 of the 6 objectives. You've trimmed a lot of their little 2-man easy kill squads. And now they're bringing their full firepower to bear. Suddenly you have less easy kills playing against the Tau, and you now you're not getting your easy kills. They're starting to get a lot more kills. They have stretched out. They're starting to pick up the bonus and the hold mores. Really, turn 3 is when that starts to develop for the Tau player, especially if they went second and they had to deploy a little more conservatively, which in many situations they're all right with because they know they're not going to kill anything turn 1. They don't mind if you have nothing in line of sight. And then you don't get a kill either, because they want to get to turn 3 not down by a ton of points. They don't need to be winning, because they'll probably start outscoring you at that point. Maybe not against Mirror Chaos. That's one of the main problems, is that they don't get to execute the strategy. But against 80% of the armies out there, this is a very solid plan that will get them wins.
Yeah. Any thoughts, Jimbo?
Yeah, well, speaking specifically of Tau and kills that are easy or not easy to get, I know that the previous build in the previous, objective game, it was the 3 Riptides, a ton of drones, and some commanders sprinkled in, and the design of the list was you start the game with the same firepower that you end it with, because the shield drones are taking the brunt of the damage. And I know a lot of that was you're giving away a lot of easy kills in the beginning because they have to go after drones. You're killing 2-man drones squads by just slowing them off in the first 2 turns, and then you lose the ability to kill a unit by turn 3. In the current lists I've been seeing from Tau, they're running, of course, a lot of shield drones because they're necessary for their crisis suit bombs and things, but they're also running a lot of fire warriors or breacher teams. And those are, in my opinion, equally or easier to kill. Although they're OBSEC, so it's necessary for holding objectives, you are seeing a vastly different approach.
Mm-hmm.
With a smart player, is it not possible to just kind of allocate your firepower so that you reserve those kills for later, because nobody's forcing you to attack those breachers, really. You can, like, they're obsecking something, but you peel them back as you need to. Unless they dogpile one objective, you can, like, basically, like, make sure you're getting kill one each turn by killing off the units that are out there.
I think the general idea with the increase in fire warriors is one, and breachers. One, crisis bomb just needs more command points. So
yeah, so you
they
need your
become
battalions and all that.
Yeah, exactly. But then two, OBSEC is a lot more important because of things like Gene Stealer Rush, etc. OBSEC, if both units have OBSEC, then you check the total number of bodies around it. So if you have one fire warrior and 30 drones, and correct me if I'm wrong, I might get this wrong because I do a lot, but I believe as long as you have one fire warrior and 20 drones on an objective, and your opponent has 15 OBSEC bodies, the fire warrior makes it to where you just count models. And then you can you have more bodies, even though you have less OBSEC bodies, you have more total bodies on the objective. You control that objective.
Yeah, John, weigh in on that, because I feel like that is not correct.
It's 100% correct.
Is it?
Okay.
I thought it would be
It
like a
is.
check of OBSEC units and then like number of models afterward.
Be logical, that is not what the rules say. So, yeah, he's right. Like, if you have one fire warrior squad surrounded by 20 drones, your opponent has to get, more models onto it, and some of them have to be OBSEC to counteract that.
Gotcha. And then infantry
another thing
can
is-
also be assisted by drones, right? So if there ends up being like two breachers left, those drones can all just fucking dogpile to keep that guy alive.
Exactly.
Absolutely, they can. Another thing with the Tau build is it's very good at denying early kills because, yes, they have a ton of easy to kill units. You can hide a lot of that. The Riptides are relatively difficult to hide. Sometimes you can, but more often than not, if someone has line of sight and range to a Riptide, like, it's going to get shot. They'll pass off to drones because they may not have a threat invuln yet. But the Crisis Suit build, there isn't anything taller than a Crisis Suit, and a Crisis Suit can hide behind a ruin very easily.
Or deep.
All those Fire Warriors can dogpile the far back of the board because there are some cases where, like, yeah, they're just not needed.
You know what, John?
So you just bring your command points
Commander is
around it.
taller than a crisis suit. So
Yeah, and he's a
let me
character, so
correct
no
you.
one cares.
Oh shit! Dang it! I just wanted to jump in and
Yep.
feel
Doesn't
important.
matter. That's tough.
yeah, that's true.
So anyway, so like the
single
Tau
cultist the single cultist can protect an entire demon prince from an entire Baneblade. Love it.
We got to cue the Will Taylor laugh track right now because I'm sure he's just gonna fucking laugh at me at that part.
But to circle all the way back real fast to the point I was making, and thank you for confirming I was correct on that with the OBSEC. Kills in general don't matter as much because the goal is to get that bonus and max your secondaries. So you can eat the opportunity cost of giving up a kill every single turn. You're kind of expecting in the new Tau build, it's a lot more volatile. You have way more firepower, some just generally less durability. So you're going to accept more losses, but you have higher firepower to break your opponent's back so you can continue to score the bonus all 6 turns or 4 of the 6 turns or whatever. So OBSEC more bodies becomes a greater asset than the kill that you can give up every single turn. So that was to finish that.
Agreed,
Yeah.
but
But I know, like, the point of the conversation was there are usually less things to kill with Tau, and I just feel like the build that they're going for is a little different. It's more towards objective control than denying kills, but
It is, exactly. It absolutely is. And it's because of the emphasis of the missions changing.
yeah. No, I get you.
Yep.
we have beaten Tau to death, but unfortunately not enough because there's still Tau around.
Nope, we're gonna have a Tau. Actually, I was hoping to have like a. Remember that one time we had Will? It was maybe like 2 months ago when the Psychic Awakening Greater Good came out. I feel like we need to have a part 2 because the meta has really settled since then. Not to say that we've seen the actual meta because of current events, but that list is so much different now than what it was when we first started talking about it. Running a bunch of infantry for the sake of having battalions was kind of an afterthought conversation. We were saying that they would need more CP because of what that book presented, but the way that it finally settled into getting that CP, like, that's a totally different conversation. So I feel like Tau is probably one of the most changed armies in composition that we've been talked about recently, at least.
Yeah, I can agree with that.
Which is cool.
All right.
Chaos has been 100% different about every 6 months for the last 2 years.
Because of just blessed Emperor's children. Alright, but I think as far as an example for a late game army, I'm thinking of Chaos. Dan, would you agree with that?
Yeah.
Also, Dan Monsolve, would you agree with that? Because I see you in the chat, boy. Get in here.
He snuck in.
He's been in here for a while. I've been watching him, waiting for him to unmute that mic. Monsolve, are you here? You just, there he is.
There you go.
Hey.
I didn't want to interrupt him.
Oh, we love the interruption. John, pose your question again to the real Dan.
Okay. I guess we're doing it this way then. I was asking one of the Dans, and the other Dan can chime in if he has an opinion on it. I was asking kind of what he thought a good example of a late game army was. My immediate thought is something like Chaos, where you hit a point where you have all of your turbo tough characters left, and your opponent doesn't, and on like turn 5 and 6, they just start, clowning people.
All right, just Iron Hands, I think, is another one. Like Blob Iron Hands, I guess you could call it. Like the Pharaohs with Intercessor Blob, I guess you could say. That's more of a late game army. You have your Dreadnoughts left at the end, your characters. Just my opinion.
The Iron Curtain, right? Is that what they're calling it? That sounds better than Blob Iron Hands.
Oh, there you go. Iron Curtain. Yeah.
The Iron
Curtain.
Yeah. So the reason I can argue both yes and no for Chaos being a late game army. Chaos has to have a good, depending on the build, at least a good mid game to get to the late game. Similar to Tau, really. Iron Hands, I would say, is probably the quintessential late game army. Like, they just do what they do turns 1 through 6, and they turns 5 and 6, they've gotten close enough to where you can't back up anymore. They get some charges off, and they just have the entire board, and that's kind of it. That's their game plan. Is as soon as they can get close enough to charge you, they control all the objectives.
Yeah. But why can't you peel them off their objectives?
5 up invul, 5 up feel no pain, oops all wounds.
What do you mean oops all wounds?
They're just point for point one of the most efficient models.
You gonna challenge my buggies, Dan? You think my buggies can't take out some chaos bullshit?
I'm talking about Imperial bullcrap. Actually, buggies are very good against the Iron Curtain because of their mobility and 36-inch threat range. They can just stay far enough away and just shoot maximum firepower until they've reduced Iron Hands, and then they can move forward and play the game once they've gotten rid of the assets they wanted to get rid of.
And then they can worship the real Emperor.
Sure.
Beautiful.
But to Lennon's point, what Chaos does really well late game, and to circle back to that, is all Chaos needs to win the late game is to have something hidden in a ruin to where you cannot shoot Chaos's characters, because Chaos has probably the most well-rounded characters. Grey Knights do too, but I think Chaos does it a little bit better because of Demon Princes. Because like I talked about earlier, Demon Prince with warp time, if they need to advance, they can move like an average of 30 inches to go get to an objective on the bottom of turn 6 to get them that ground control point or that hold more, whatever it takes. Or they can warp time into a charge to get the kill more or to kill that character that gets them the secondary point, whatever. They also have a lot of psychic, just mind bullets, so they still have an efficient amount of damage when there's not much left on both sides. Chaos can just kind of do more damage at the end of the game. So that's just a couple examples of the toolbox of Chaos characters letting you win a close game late.
Mm-hmm. Feel like they're not actually good right now just because of that being the meta at the moment. But I feel like Knights, like an actual Knight army, is actually an example of kind of like a late game army. So I feel like with Knights, when they are a good army, and I get it, right now they're not, but they will get new rules soon. So whenever that happens, this might be relevant again. Like, it's always like, oh, turn 1, I kill a Knight. Turn 2, I kill another Knight. Turn 3, most of my damage output has been killed by the various Knights that I haven't been killing, and I wound a Knight. Turn 4, I maybe killed that Knight, and then there's a full health one left that I have no answers for. Maybe you don't kill that Knight. And suddenly there's like a couple turns at the end of the game where it's like, the Knights have been kind of getting that kill more, you've been getting the hold more, the whole damn game. And then it's suddenly like, ooh, my screens are dead and I'm out of anti-Knight options. Now I'm not getting a kill. And then the Knight player just gets their kill more, hold, while you get hold more. And that kind of starts to slip away. And even at a certain point, when the Knight player gets hold more, you're done. Like,
exactly.
Like they've still got their 2 Halverns in the back shooting. They have 1 or 2 Bully Knights coming and just stomping on you turn after turn after turn. And eventually they plant a Knight on a middle objective. You don't get near it because you don't want to get heroicked. And then they hold more and suddenly it's going really downhill. Like, I've seen that happen with Knights, and I understand they're not in that place right now. But that is still a place where Knights can be when they have slightly better rolls.
And especially because they have full tilt, advance and charge, things like that, they can, Chaos Knights really do it well. Imperial Knights maybe have it too, but you can get OBSEC, count as 10 models, move, advance, full tilt, use various movement buffs, and just get across the board, get that bonus turn 1, just steal it from your opponent. You get that turn 1 bonus, and then that Knight's the one that they have to kill. That's just 1 point that can set you up and throw the pacing of the game, which is what we started this with. You can get that little bit of early game pressure and dictate their target to set you up for a big late game. You throw away a Gallant that you didn't care about anyway to protect your Crusader that is going to do more over the course of 6 turns. And you got the opportunity cost of getting that extra point and dictating what your opponent does. There's a lot of good benefits that you're setting up for the late game. You got the characters you want alive. You have the models you want alive in the position you want them to close out the game. And yeah, I agree. Knights, when they're good, do that very well.
Yeah. I actually kind of, no one likes Knight. Like, obviously Knight players like Knights, and every Imperium player has a Knight stuck in the closet somewhere. I actually kind of want Knights to be like a good balanced army.
Good. It is a lot of fun.
Yeah, like Knight. Plus, like, the games last like an hour. You get to go get lunch afterwards, sit down for a while. It's really not bad.
Get a glass of wine if you're at Critical or however you are. So I know that Knights right now, honestly, I like to believe that vehicle lists came back ever since they did changes to Space Marines, and the Imperial Fists are a little less of a presence. But they're also, after all this is over, of course, going to be coming out with the Psychic Awakening for the Knights and the Chaos Knights, right? So they could even be more of a presence than we're talking about now. So I, for one, would love for that to happen, even if I could just integrate them into my Imperium lists, because y'all know that I started into the more competitive field of 40k with just pure Knights list, which at the time was just Gatekeeper because they were strong as fuck. But we'll see how they come out of the other side of that Psychic Awakening book.
Yeah.
Yep. And I think that just about wraps us up. A little bit of housekeeping for what we're doing now. Again, we'll be back in 2 weeks with another episode, not 1 week. We'll be back with news of Blackstone Fortress. I'm playing in a tabletop simulator league with the Art of War Network, where I am a coach. So if you guys ever want to get a little more Lenin time, by all means, check out the Art of War. premium coaching service for 40K, all the good stuff. I just feel obligated to plug it. Since,
Honestly,
I work for them.
can I pitch that just a little bit?
Yeah.
As a consumer, so while John is a coach, I have gone ahead and subscribed to The Art of War, and I can say that over the past 2 weeks of subscription so far, I do feel like I've gained a lot of content. So while subscription for me, because me and my wife are into like subscription services that deliver monthly and all that kind of stuff, Art of War really does offer a lot. Like, there's daily content, and each week, this is something I didn't expect, an email comes advising of the entire week's itinerary, each day's expectation, the different games you'll be able to see. Like, it's very well planned, and I've been getting a lot of messages about what they're planning to do next, more developments, and making it more organized, or however they might be organizing their other things. But there's just a cool interest for everybody. If you're only interested in Xenos, there's plenty of content to warrant what you've subscribed for. But if you just want to know about every army, there's literally content every day. Like, John knows that I shied away from the idea of a coaching service whenever I first started 40K, but honestly, it's become an invaluable resource.
And it's literally less than $1 a day, even in February.
Yeah,
so
that's true.
It's less than $1 a day to get one thing a day. If you do nothing else with it and you get one thing a day for less than $1 a day, like, when you put it that way, that is so. Like, it's just what else can you get for $1 a day? A ice cream at Wendy's.
I would say Netflix, but everyone's going to be about done watching Netflix by this time next week. We'll have watched literally everything on Netflix, and then you'll need The Art of War.
Yeah,
but
sadly.
For now, you are still listening to FloridaMan40k. We do appreciate everyone for listening to us. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, ratings, all of the lovely things. If you think Dan should shave his beard, leave a comment. Let us know. I think Dan should shave his beard.
Did you say that might happen?
It's not happening.
Oh, okay. I was like, holy shit, no way.
No. I shaved my beard 4 years ago. My wife laughed at me and left the room.
That is the best story.
So many different jokes I could make with it. All right. Well, that's going to wrap us up for the week, unless someone else had something to add other than a joke about Dan, which we make enough of.
Oh, yeah. If there's anything you want us to cover, now is the time to tell us, because we got nothing but time to study, look into it, and talk about. So if there's something besides Eldar, Ruben, no, we're not talking Eldar. But anything else, let us know.
All right, folks. All right, thanks for listening, and we'll catch you next time.
See ya.
Good night.